Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the FTD Virtual Design Show titled Deck the Halls with Ian, featuring FTD Education Consultant Ian Prosser, AIFD. We are excited to welcome Ian live today from his home in Florida as he shows us how to dress the room and prepare for holiday entertaining this season. As a quick housekeeping note, Ian will be taking questions during the session. If you have a question for him, simply type it in the chat box in the toolbar at the bottom of your screen. All right, let's get started. Welcome, Ian.
Well, thank you and welcome everyone. Well, that season is upon us and today we're going to deck the halls. So when we spoke about doing this segment today, the thought process came up about upselling. And so when we go into a client's home and we're going to try and upsell for a party, then it's very important that you really take note of everything that is in the room, because I am a huge fan of not removing anything that is in the room just because it's Christmas. And when you go into family's home, the personality and the details that they've taken a long time to choose are all there. So to start to tear things apart just because it's the holidays is not my bag. I think that we're there to accent and add to and embellish, but we're not there to take away and take away important things that perhaps they use all year round. In this instance, I have a lot of blue and white chinoiserie type containers and such like, and we want to keep those in the room because the walls here are blue. The fireplace, the bookcases, everything is blue, and so this ties in. So all I want to do is add a little bit of the holidays to it. So where do we start? Well, the mantle, I think, is a very important place to start. And here I have used a faux garland that is a really good quality garland, and I think that you have the opportunity to sell that the garland from the standpoint of it's not something that they can buy in a chain department, a chain accessory store like Michael's or anywhere like that. So this is a very nice quality garland. I got it from Park Hill. It's got many different kinds of greenery, which to me makes it feel like it's a lot more realistic. Now, one of the things that I have done in this is to cheat a little bit and also to deceive partygoers or just the family themselves is that, you know, in Florida, the fresh garland dries out very quickly. So we use a lot of faux garland, but I do add into it a lot of fresh materials, and that way it makes it smell, and people then don't get another thought. They think it perhaps is the whole thing is fresh. I do the same with an artificial Christmas tree. I normally put some boughs of fresh cedar and such like underneath the tree, as well as you can add some potpourri to the base, a little container of potpourri, so that it smells like it's a real tree and gives more of the feeling of the holidays. So in this instance, I have gone floor to floor, which I do like to do. And here I have swagged the garland, but I also do like at times to do the garland straight across the top. I do not like when the garland has a little short tail that comes down here. It's a 12-inch tail or something. It looks like you've run out of materials. So I do like floor to floor. If there are children or animals in the house, I normally would put like a little nail or perhaps even a cut hook to the base of the fireplace if I can, or into the baseboard with the client's okay on that, and then wire the garland to that so that it keeps the shape that you want and children are not gonna snag it as they're playing and pull the whole thing off. So anyway, so if you're going to go into the home and do an install of Christmas, and perhaps they are going to have a Christmas party or a New Year's Eve, a Christmas Eve event or something like that, then that gives you the opportunity to say, you know what, it would be great if we could come back in here and to add some fresh to it. So in this instance, you'll see that I've added some really beautiful quality ribbon. It is, it's a red silk on the back, and then it has this beautiful tartan plaid finish to the front, because the room, as we look around, has Scottish accents. And so that's the reason that we've chosen to go in this direction. So from here, I just added the ribbon, tucked it through the garland along with the fresh materials. And then I've added, in this instance, some fresh red roses. This is a dozen red roses. So unless the house is extremely formal to where everything is symmetrical, you know, if they had a window on either side of the fireplace and maybe a chest on either side, something along that line, then I like to be a little bit more asymmetrical, particularly if it's in a family room rather than a living room. And then I simply water tubed some roses in here. So again, it gives you this offset feeling, but it gives you some really nice detail to this side here. We've incorporated some brass candlesticks with some red candles so that it gives us something high on the other side that counterbalances what I've done here. So it's really important that, you know, that you see the difference there. And then I'm going to take this container of roses, it's just maybe 8, 9, 10 roses, and I'm going to put it over here. So on the opposite side of the mantle, I've got something equally as interesting as I had on the, or as I have on this side. So it balances, but it gives me a different sort of detail rather than it being completely formal and matching. So anyway, so there's our mantle. You know, it's not a bad thing if there are bookcases, just to add some little vases of roses and suggest some candles. It's very easy to do a soft sell, and that's always the time that I was most successful in upselling, is when you suggest and you step away. You don't talk about it again. You've now sown the seed, and that person then has the opportunity themselves to then come back to you and say, you know what, I really like that idea of adding the vases into the bookcases and adding the candles. Can you do that for me? We certainly can. So just from that power of suggestion and from the soft sell of it, we've managed to upsell some more things. You know, your truck's going anyway, you may as well fill it. So so here we are. That's essentially the mantle complete here. So over here we have a pair of wall sconces, and the wall sconces are matching, but I only did one today, just to give you the idea. So it's simply a piece of artificial garland that you then could overlay with some fresh cedars and holly and such like. Of course, this is wonderful Florida, so we don't have all of those things at hand. So I added in a little piece of artificial pine, and then I added some succulent baby tears here into it, just to give a little bit more texture. I'm sure you can't quite see what I'm speaking of here. I added just one loop and a tail of the tartan ribbon, because we have so much detail within the wall sconce that we don't want this big old wide, you know, car-sized bow on it. So just one loop and a little tail is enough. I did glue in some ornaments just to give us a little bit of sparkle and make it a little bit more festive. We have some teardrop ornaments here, and then some different sizes. So as well as a few pine cones tucked in there. So that's really easy. So when you're in a client's home and when you're dealing with a wall sconce that perhaps is a pretty expensive piece, please be very conscious that a lot of these crystals are just hooked on. That's the really important thing. So to make sure that you don't damage And it could be, you know, a vintage wall sconce, or even if you're doing a chandelier, you know, you have to be very conscious of what you're dealing with. So anyway, then on the mirror, which obviously this is an antique mirror, and there's lots of detail to the top. So when you're doing something like this, you don't want to take away, as I spoke earlier, away from what is already there. So we have the detail of the basket and the spade and the rake and such like up here. So all I did was add a little bit of Christmas greens up into here in artificial. It could very well be adding some fresh in there, or maybe some fresh holly or something like that will do well. And then to the center of the mirror, I'm going to do this topiary. So we're going to add some of these beautiful red roses. I've already greened it with lemon leaf and some seeded eucalyptus, and I'll show you how I did this. So this is, I took a couple of Oasis blocks and pan glued them to a plastic liner or a plastic tray, and then I stacked the pieces of foam on top of that, and then covered it with chicken wire just to be safe, and then taped the whole thing in, crisscrossing and bringing the tape, of course, back onto itself. So in this instance, I don't want the tree to be the whole way around. So I have, I'm going to lift this down so that you can hear me maybe better. And so, you know, it's a nice size. I'm going to add probably a couple of dozen roses into it. And we're just going to start here, and all the groundwork is done. These roses are beautiful. And, you know, this is something that you need to alert your client to the fact that they need to add water to it. You know, it's a good idea. Take it to the sink if they want this to go on for several days. Let's get rid of this. But the nice thing is, if you sold a lot of these in your store, then you can easily have these greened ahead of time. Just spray them with maybe some Crown and Glory or something like that, just to keep the greens fresh. And you can see how quickly this is to insert a couple dozen roses. Essentially, the roses are getting cut all at the same length. And we're just going to pop some more in here. So in this instance, as I said, we only need this to be 3/4 because it's sitting against the mirror. Now, if it's going to be on a console table or something like that in the entry of a home, then it may well sit out further. So you might very well have to do the back of the arrangement at the same time as you do the front. Well, look at this. I mean, this is going together in but a few moments.
Ian, are you able to, because you're a little bit farther from us, when you complete that, are you able to walk a little bit closer to the camera to show us?
I can walk to the camera for sure.
That would be fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, so there we just about have it. I mean, you could certainly, and maybe I'll do it in just a moment. I shall. You need to make sure that your Oasis is very secure when you're stacking like this. So be careful and mindful of that. Here's just a little touch of Christmas greens. So I'll just add a little bit more. I like this chartreusey color as opposed to more dark green. And then I will add some hyperion berry. So I have it here. I would suggest that you strip the leaves off because they'll be the first thing to yellow. And then we can tuck some berries through here. If you have holly available, that would be perfect also. And of course will last. And if you are up north and you have it growing outside and you can harvest some for free, then definitely do that. But also make sure that you are charging for it. Just because you got it for free doesn't mean that you need to pass it on for free. So, you know, you've taken the time to go out there and cut it, and then you've got to charge for it too. We can't not charge. Otherwise, we won't be in business next year to take care of what we need to take care of. Using a little bit of Norfolk Island pine here, which gives me a nice little look to it. Gives me a different texture, and it's also filling in the little gaps from where we're seeing the foam. All right, okay, it's looking pretty snazzy here. And, you know, this is something that you can get a nice amount of money for. And it seems like this year, more than any other year, that people are so tired of COVID and they are ready to celebrate. So this is your opportunity to go into someone's home and suggest. You can then walk away and leave it and allow them to decide what they want to do. Of course, you're going to have to give them an idea of cost, but I think this year of all years, we have that opportunity to go ahead and sell a little bit more and make more suggestions. So I can bring this, I'll just bring it like this. So there we go. Can we see that better now?
Yeah, that looks great.
Okay, so, you know, it's, as I said, it's just, you know, I didn't finish it in the back here, but just so that you could see that, but I certainly would, since it's going to be against the mirror. Okay, so then we're just going to pop this baby up here. And there we go. Look how great that looks against this mirror. Looks really pretty special. It's something a little bit different. People have seen boxwood topiaries and assorted foliage and such like that. This gives you the opportunity to make it really super festive. And it's merely the placement of 1.5 dozen, 2 dozen roses, depending on how full you want this to be. So yeah, I would have that in my house for sure. So let's do perhaps a centerpiece. And I'm just going to do, I've got this one pre-greened for you. So again, we're in the client's containers. I just put a little liner in there. Remember, if you don't know how expensive a container is or how good it is, or may have been from Home Goods, who knows, but you have to respect people's containers. And so therefore you should not be taping onto it. You should not be bunching chicken wire and sticking it into a bowl that you could then damage the face of. So this way, this is just in a plastic container, just a little, an 8-inch design tray. There's our China bowl, and I'm just gonna pop it in there like that. You can either, from a delivery standpoint, you can either make it at the studio or the store and then just drop it in, or you can take the containers home or back to the studio and work it that way. So what do we have in here? We've got some fresh pears, and I think the fresh pears give some really, really, really good detail to it. I like the color. And then I've added a few pine cones. We've got some cedar. We've got seeded eucalyptus. And when you're working in one room, there needs to be thread of continuity to it. You have to be able to look at each piece and realize that they may well be a little bit different, but at the same time, there's a common thread that runs through everything. So remember, I added some cedar and some eucalyptus to the garland. I put it in the vase that went up here. I've added it to the Christmas tree that's here. And, you know, you could always add a little bit of fresh eucalyptus into the wall sconce also. So when you go to a client's home, the important thing, as I said, is to survey the room and then take stock of different things that you would like to do. And maybe it gives you the opportunity to be a little bit more individual. At the same time, it's very important that you take into consideration the style of the room, look at the furnishings, look at the architecture of the room. Is it traditional? Is it contemporary? You know, I was in a client's home yesterday regarding a Christmas party, and the house is massive, stark, barely any art in the walls. So that tells me we certainly don't want to go with something like this. We don't want anything like this because it just does not work with the home. And I think what that does is it makes us as individuals stretch just that little bit more to make sure that we are totally in sync with what's going on. You know, if the place is stark, then perhaps fewer but more expensive flowers would look great. Maybe you accent it with birds of paradise leaves. You could even spray those gold or white or silver or whatever it may be, just to make sure that it's completely in sync with what's going on. What this does as the family welcome guests into their house is it makes you look like a star, because then they look at the pieces that then almost in a modern space become like art pieces. You know, they look like, you know, floral sculptures, and you've had fun in the meantime, as long as you've managed to charge what you need to charge. But I think it's all about us having fun. It's a stressful time of year, but if you can be allowed to have a little bit of artistic license to where you can do something that's unusual, that's making you as an individual step out of the box that you're normally in, then that's a really good thing. But at the same time, 75% of the folks are going to be more traditional. So we're going to go more along these lines, and you can still have fun with that too. I mean, this was, well, you saw how quickly it took me to put the roses in here, but probably prior to that, the prep work and also the greening of it probably took 10 minutes. So 10 minutes, maybe, I don't know, did I do it in 5 or so? So in 15 to 20 minutes, we turned this out that I probably would sell for a couple $100. So, you know, I don't know how the cost of Christmas greens may have been affected this year. Hopefully, since all of it is domestic, we don't have, you know, horrendous shipping charges and such like. So anyway, let me add to this arrangement that I've started off, as I said, with, I've greened it. So again, for the ease of producing things en masse for Christmas, this can all be greened and ready to go. And I think this gives you the opportunity when it's a gift item, or if it is a party, that it gives you the opportunity for people to see what you're capable of and what your brand actually does. So I'm going to add a few more roses here. This is such a beautiful color. It's Freedom is the variety of the rose. And I'm going to keep the Freedom just a little bit on the tighter side here. Look at how it gives me not only pockets of color, but at the same time, it gives me some really nice texture that is very close to the foam. So I'm allowing the foliage maybe a little bit more to project through. And then the more expensive flowers will add coming through that even more.
Ian, we've got a question.
Yes.
How do you secure the pairs to that arrangement?
Oh, that's a good idea. It's a very good question. So it has a little dowel in the bottom. So there's just a dowel. Actually, this is a flower stem that I've just put this in here. But if you use like a wooden pick, then of course the pick will swell when it hits the moisture, and it will hold it secure. So another good thing is if you're using citrus in arrangements over the holidays, you know, you might use limes, you might use oranges, you might use lemons. Or you might use other fruits. Now, not so much with soft skin fruits like pears and such like, but if you're using citrus or you're using pomegranates or that kind of thing, if you take like a light floor wax and dilute it a little bit with water and then spray your fruit with the floor wax, then what it does is it seals the piece of fruit, and then we don't get fruit flies. So that's something that we need to be conscious of also. But that's how we do it. And of course, we're in a warm climate. Well, I mean, you're in a cold climate, or you may be in a cold climate, but at the same time, there's going to be more heating on in the house. So I would any citrus or other fruits that are not as soft skinned as pears, then I normally spray with a light diluted solution of floor wax, and that way it seals it. So there we go. We've got a nice arrangement as it is, and we've made it more compact here and having the Christmas greens come through. But perhaps I'll add some of these really adorable kind of burgundy red callas, mini callas, which are fun. So this being the more expensive flower in the arrangement, I would tend to make this then pop through the design so that you can see it, and you're using the red roses as a foundation. Oops. These are just so gorgeous. But we've got some other beauties that I'm going to put in here also. And I've got some Gloriosa lilies, which are one of my favorites. Right now, they're coming out of Holland, and they are fairly expensive, but they are quite fabulous. And, you know, it could be fun to do something like this and maybe use the bases like red amaryllis or flowers of that sort. Look at these. Is that just fabulous? The color is great. It's got some beautiful bounce. It adds visual weight to the design, but it's very airy at the same time. Oh, really caught up here. All right, there we go. Well, there went that bud. So I'm going to strip the foliage off, I think, because I really want to see the stem here. And add. Look at these, they're like dancing over the top, which I just love. But it is an expensive, more expensive bloom, so be sure that you check with your wholesaler on cost before you get overly enthusiastic. I think we'll cut this one a little bit shorter. Before you price something out. So see, we have the most interesting bloom is sitting high in the design so that people can appreciate what it is, rather than, you know, you would hate to tuck this. And Gloriosa come very short also, but maybe a 5-inch stem. And so I'm very wary of it using that, because all of a sudden it's tucked in too deeply and you can't really see it overly well. And it's one of the most expensive blooms in your designs. So I like when we use the longer ones. Of course, they're a little bit pricier. And then this way it kind of dances over the top. So maybe we'll add some berries to this. Again, it could be berried holly. So let's add just a touch in here. When you're doing a monochromatic color harmony, in this instance, we've got shades, tints, and tones of red here. It makes it very interesting when you have lots of textures. Either that, or it needs to be of one variety of flower, just like we have here, other than the incorporation of some berries. Okay, so we'll add just a little bit more in here. Another fruit that would be really great in here could be pomegranates. That would be really quite awesome. Their pomegranates are really wonderful when they are sliced and cut in half, because then you get the detail of the seeds in the inside. So it adds another layer of texture to your design. You can also use, lemons and limes and such like. I tend to, they will dry out very quickly. So I tend to spray them with a little bit of water. Then I take a piece of like cling film or such like and pull it very taut underneath, twist it with a wire around the wooden pick that you've already put into the stem of the, put the wooden pick into the base of the fruit. And then that way it can give you longevity from the standpoint of fruit flies and drying out, and then it no longer looks the way it did. I think also in holiday work we have the opportunity both in Thanksgiving and in Christmas to incorporate dried fruits. So you can use things like slices of dried oranges and that kind of thing, just to give you a little bit of detail that will last for a long time. You can add some cinnamon sticks or whatever it may be, but look at the texture in here. Look at all the different details. And I think something like this, when somebody sits down at a table to enjoy dinner or cocktails or whatever it may be, then it's something that they then sit and look at for quite some time. So now they, even although when they sit down initially, they think, oh, well, that's a really fabulous arrangement. Then when they realize, oh, there's fruit tucked in here, and we've got some pine cones recessed in here, and look at the color of the red roses, right? That are right tucked in deeply. So I've got some red sprays that I could use, and I also have some red ranunculus that I've used in other pieces. So we seem to have a little gap at the front. So make sure when you're doing a round arrangement that you look all the way around. And that's the beauty of a turntable. These turntables we got, I think it was $22 at Uline. And the nice thing is, if it is a taller, a heavier arrangement, then you don't have to huff and puff and pull it around. You can just put it on here. So it's a more industrial, it's not particularly a floral turntable, but this works really well. And as again, as I said, you can order them from Uline, and I believe the cost was somewhere like $22.
Thanks, Ian. I think we've got a question, but I think I'm going to ask you to take some close-up photos after we're done, so we can share those on the website as well, so we can see all that yumminess in there. But one of the questions, which flower would you recommend to put in the garland which would dry out nicely?
Well, I mean, roses would certainly dry. I mean, they're going to get very much darker into it as they dry out. They'll get much darker red. Maybe depending on the color in the room, like in the room here, we could actually get away with lavender, you know, fresh lavender, or you could do like fresh heather, whether it was white or whether it was red. That will dry nicely, or even antique hydrangea. You know, antique hydrangea has that beautiful kind of burgundy hue over the top of it, and it dries beautifully. So you could easily tuck some fresh antique hydrangea through it, and then it would dry nicely as we you know, as we progress through the holidays. If they want something that's installed early in the month and they're going to have you know, a holiday party at closer to the actual date, then sometimes it can be fun to do that. So there we go. I think that worked out really well. Maybe I'll lift it, bring it a little bit closer so that you can see it. So it's really fun, as Janet, you know, suggested to me. We probably will take some photographs of these and she can put them online. So, you know, that would be really great. And that way you can see them, and we can do, you know, quite a bit of the other details. So Janet, how are we doing on time? Are we good?
We are just a few minutes over.
We are. Well, look at that. Ian ran his mouth for too long yet again, but that's okay. So in another corner of the room, I've taken a picture that the client had and added a little bit of Christmas to this also. And so it's accented, it's behind, you know, the decanter and glasses here. There's some tchotchkes on the table. So this is adding a little bit more to it. And again, it's up to you to be the person that says, why don't we put a little touch of Christmas over in this corner just to balance everything else that's going on. I think it's very important for you to choose your words well, to be able to just sell that other little arrangement into the corner. Let's balance the room by adding A, B, and C over here. So anyway, we have run over time, and thank you very much for joining me today for Deck the Halls. It was my pleasure to be here on behalf of FTD. Please go to FTD University and you'll see a lot of programs that we've done throughout the year, and give you a little bit more education and a little bit more enthusiasm for the holidays as we all get that little bit closer. So thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. Thank you, FTD, for having me. And I wish you all a happy and prosperous holiday season. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian, so much. I don't know if we have any final questions. If anybody does have a question, type it in there. Do you have kind of a final tip that you can share with us?
Just, you know, keep your head straight as you are. You know, when we're busy, we tend to underprice ourselves. And that's not a good thing to do, because materials are, you know, are fairly costly at this time. You know, roses and such like, you know, have jumped in price quite horrendously. So be sure that you don't underprice yourself. That is the most important thing. In the floral industry, there's a very fine line between profit and loss. We want you to stay to the good side so that you can be a very good Santa Claus this year. So thank you.
All right, we do have another question. What kind of markup do you use for holiday arrangements? Is that different every day?
I normally, fresh flowers, I normally operate 3 times markup, or perhaps 3.5. And then hard goods and other things, I do 2 to 2.5, normally 2.5. So yeah, the fresh floral product would be 3.5 times.
Fantastic, thank you. All right,
okay.
Well, it looks like we are out of questions for today. I just want to thank everyone for attending. A recording will be available on demand on the FTD Mercury Network Florist YouTube channel. And as Ian mentioned, for more education programming from FTD, visit ftdi.com to register for upcoming free webinars and design shows, as well as viewing those past education programs on demand. Thanks, everyone.